comments and for watching us. We'll see you again tomorrow morning. Bye for now. And welcome down to Stony Point. Today is another beautiful day. Today is the calm before the storm. My name is Jax. I'm going to be your naturalist. We have Jason behind the camera, but we're going straight over to the Shire because we're watching one of our penguin chicks do something super interesting. So Flippy or Frodo is digging a hole to the center of the earth. This is a live show, so please do send us in your comments and questions on YouTube or on Twitter using the hashtag WildEarth. You can also submit your comments and questions on our website. And kids, email us at kidsquestions@wildearth.tv. So we are shooting down here at Jacuzzi today. And when I walked by Jacuzzi yesterday, there was absolutely nobody in the Shire. And today I got a bit of a fright because I thought one of the chicks was missing. But both of our babies are in the Shire. And the Shire is now so deep that the chicks can actually go in and disappear without us actually seeing that they're there at all. Just before the show, we had the adults digging. And now either Flippy or Frodo was helping out and making the nest bigger. So I just wanted us to start the show with that action. And now it actually looks like an empty nest, but what I'm thinking is that this nest is never actually empty. The chicks stay in there, but they are so deep down in the nest under the rock that we just don't know it. So we've actually solved the mystery puzzle that started with Byron on one of his shows. If you have a close look at the Shire now, there's no one there. The chicks are, there. One of the chicks has just stuck its head out of the hole. So I really wonder how deep these chicks and this nest, how deep they've dug and how deep the nest really goes. So that's a pretty exciting start to our show today, solving a mystery. We are going to go have a look at the official weather forecast very soon.
The Safari Guide of the Year 2022 is approaching us rapidly. This year, we'll be heading to Bushwise Field Guides at the Southern African Wildlife College from the 27th June till the 2nd of July. We will soon meet all our contestants who are vying for the prize of being the very best of the best, and the judges who will put them through their paces. Join me, Steve Falconbridge, as we dream it, guide it, win it.
If you would like to be a part of the team that shares the wildebeest migration in Kenya live on WildEarth, then we have some great news for you. There are a few places left to join our expeditions in August and September this year. You'll be staying in an exclusive tented camp with ensuite bedrooms nestled in the riverine woodlands of the Talek River. Head over to our website to book your bucket list experience today. WildEarth Expeditions. Travel with purpose.
So over the next few days, we're going to see the weather change quite a lot. And you're going to notice that the show is going to be a bit shaky today. We've got lots of people around on the boardwalk, and every time we step and they step, we're going to have a little bit of movement. It's going to be a little bit like being on a boat. And speaking of which, Jason and I were having a chat yesterday because we decided that we need to figure out our directions together. Darkman lover, a very happy Friday to you too. I think we couldn't have asked for a better one over here where we are. And today, Jason and I decided that we were going to figure out a direction system. So when you work on a boat, you always use the clock system because it's just the easiest way to point things out. So in the front of the boat, which is the bow, is always 12 o'clock. You always have 3 o'clock on your right-hand side, 6 o'clock at the back, and 9 on your left. And we've decided today that the mountain of Houston is our 12 o'clock. It's particularly helpful when we're pointing things out on the ocean because it's just really a great expanse to try and find animals to watch. But yesterday we had lots of animals about. We had spouts of Brutus whales, we got a couple of splashes from the common dolphins. Then we had our African penguins. I don't think we got to see that giant petrel. I did go have a look for it in the frame, but I think we missed out on the giant petrel. But we did get to see a couple of seals. So we're just having a look out now at the sea. Yolanda, it really is. It's nice and hot once again. Today the wind is changing, and so when the wind changes, you do have these lulls in the conditions. And then tomorrow the wind is going to pick up from the northwest, which is our stormy wind. Anything from the west, northwest, or southwest is generally considered bad weather. And I think I mentioned this on the show before. The old fishermen of the area think that this year might be a really bad, stormy winter. So they just have a knack for these sort of things, and they just have this feeling that this year is going to be a very stormy one. So we'll have to actually watch and see. Although the storm is coming in, I don't think the swell is looking all that large. It looks like only about 3.5 meters. So today the swell is probably at about 2, maybe 2.5. The largest swell that I've ever seen in the region is about an 11-meter swell. Nana, so that's a really interesting question. To a degree, the wind can sometimes contribute to the surge. So if it's really windy and stormy, then your surge comes a lot higher. So your high tide is pretty fixed, but if the sea is really strong, it sometimes pushes that high tide further than what it would usually be, and it would be stronger than what it would usually be, and that's often when it causes destruction. You know, in your coastal areas where you have buildings and infrastructure that's low-lying.
Are you a fan of the Djuma clan? If the answer to this is yes, then you are cordially invited to our Hyena Hullabaloo starting on the 13th of June. During this week, we want to take a trip down memory lane. Please send in your favorite Djuma clan moments to hyena@wildearth.tv by the 7th of June, and we will dig into our archives and try our hardest to play it out during this week of Hyena celebrations. Long misunderstood as dim-witted, gluttonous scavengers, the hyena over the years has had a serious PR crisis on its paws. Here at WildEarth, our beloved Djuma clan has allowed us a chance to set the record straight.
We're sitting here with the Djuma clan.
So now it's time to honor this critical animal and join our Hyena Hullabaloo. Trishala Naidu, a self-confessed hyena lover, will be leading the celebrations, culminating in a chance to name Ribbon's new cubs.
So we're just watching these very small, very gentle waves meet with the land. Just above these waves we have several African penguins, quite a few juveniles who are in the midst of molting into their adult colours. Now one juvenile has just moved up out of the way of the tide. Linda, so it's very likely that penguins will take shelter inside their homes. So they will come to land and they will sit in their burrows with their chicks and wait for the storm to pass. I will say that when it comes to the ocean, seabirds are absolutely mad in the conditions they're able to handle. They can handle stormy seas. They can handle very extreme conditions, extreme wind speeds. They're far more hardy than we are. But I do find when the weather is a bit rougher on boats, you don't often see penguins out at sea, but I also think that's a lot to do with the amount of noise the boat makes when it's sort of, because the boat will go up and down in the swell, and I think the sound of the boat coming down is sometimes a bit noisy for penguins in the storm, and so you're less likely to spend time with them and watch them when you're going out in slightly windier weather. That one juvenile is very cute because he's just got his the white on the side of his head starting to form, and I always think it looks like these big ears when they're molting into their adult plumage. And today is the 11th of June, and today is actually the birthday of Jacques Cousteau, who is, I think, one of the very first people that was associated with ocean conservation and really exploring the ocean and making the ocean accessible to the world with his documentaries. Today is actually the 10th of June, so sorry. I think it's actually tomorrow that's Jacques Cousteau's birthday. I was reading something this morning and I've gotten confused about the dates, so we'll talk about that tomorrow. But today I do want to ask you for a different country or different region to compare animals to. So if you have a country that you would like us to look at the animals that you find there and compare it to the animals that we find in South Africa, send that into our directing team, and they will let me know. And then tomorrow on the show, what I can do is I can come and we can see what birds and what animals you have there that are similar to the wildlife that we have here at Stony Point. And if there's nothing at Stony Point, certainly similar to some South African wildlife. Speaking of which, we have 2 kelp gulls. And variations of these kelp gulls can be found in numerous areas in the world. Milani, so that's an interesting question. In South Africa, penguins have made a movement from the west to the east. So it's not necessarily a migration. I would describe it more as sort of colonizing new areas, and that has been found in several different penguin species, where animals are going to move from areas where the conditions are unfavorable to conditions where it's more favorable. And so in South Africa, historically, we'd have most of our penguins living on the west coast, so most of the penguins actually in Namibia. But there has been a movement of fish from the east, or from the west to the east, which is partially driven by overfishing, but also partially driven by climate change. And with that movement of the fish, the penguins are going to follow where the fish go. And so penguin colonies are going further east. They are trying to establish that colony at Hoop Nature Reserve. And the stronghold for African penguins at the moment is supposed to be Algoa Bay, where they have a couple of islands where the penguins live. So that's close to the Eastern Cape. That's probably about a little less than 1,000, probably about 800 kilometers to the east of us now. But the thing with penguins is that they actually need cold water. So the water here, this is still the Atlantic Ocean, and if you look at your different oceans, when you have warm tropical waters, you have a lot of diversity.
Find a way into the kill to eat
get their fill in there as well. But they're also going to be told off. See, lions are not great at sharing their food. Okay, guys. Let me just taking frustration out on the other lion, but you see, it was interesting.
This morning we were driving and suddenly we heard a lot of commotion. I think the wild dogs might have caught an impala then, or the leopard might have caught the impala, and as it was dragging it, the wild dog saw it, started chasing the leopard up into the tree, and then the hyenas came to steal it. But what an incredible sighting.
So what I was just chatting about was biomass, and so if you look at your oceans, you've got your warm oceans, you've got your cold oceans, if we're going to really simplify it. Your warm oceans have lots of different fish, very colorful fish, but those oceans are nutrient poor. Where if you look at your cold oceans have less species, but the biomass is more. So there's more animals overall, and what contributes to that biomass is the presence of lots of silver schooling fish. So those are your sardines and your anchovies. So you'll have tons and tons of these silver schooling fish. And those silver schooling fish are the reason why we have African penguins living here. It's the reason why we have Brutus whales, common dolphins, Cape fur seals, all the fun stuff. So for me, everything that I want to see in the ocean, or I want to work with certainly full time, likes to eat these silver schooling fish. And you'll find silver schooling fish in higher concentrations, higher densities. There's more of them in your colder oceans. So if the oceans are getting warmer and you have less of these silver schooling fish, that puts pressure on the animals that we watch here at Stony Point. Nathan, that's a really cool question, and we do. So was it World Oceans Day, or was it the other Intertidal show that we did on symbiosis? So that would have been World Environmental Day. Igor and I were in the tidal pools, and we found some clipfish. So clipfish, the rockfish, are the most common small fish that you'll find in the intertidal pools. And we actually had a clipfish who was sitting on top of the back of a crab, which was really interesting on that show. So the clipfish tend to sort of inhabit the little nooks and crannies inside these pools. The little egrets are quite a fan of trying to take the clipfish out of the pools, as are the crowned cormorants. And then sometimes you do have your small schooling fish. So you'll have little mullets who will come into the intertidal pools, and sometimes they get stuck. So sometimes you can actually look at the water and you'll just see these little flashes of light coming from a pool, and that's the light reflecting off the scales of the fish, which is really beautiful to see. That penguin has chosen real violence. So as it got out the water, it spotted a juvenile and decided to slap with its flippers. So Erin, our Cape cormorants are very reliant on sardine and anchovy. So sardine, anchovy and red-eye are the three main silver schooling fish that we have in this region. And your Cape cormorants are very reliant on sardine and anchovy. So that's their favorite food, as is it's the favorite food of the African penguin. Your crowned cormorants really like clipfish, which we were just talking about. Your white-breasted cormorants are very generalist, so they also like your clipfish. They also like your sort of reef fish. And then your bank cormorants really enjoy rock lobster. That's one of their favorite foods. So the bank cormorant actually gets its name. So sorry, we're just going to have a couple of people walking past, so it's going to be a bit shaky. So your bank cormorants get the name because the fishermen used to believe, anecdotally, that where you had these, your bank cormorants, they were good fishing banks. Maybe it was for some of the fish that they were hunting in the reefs. To me, it certainly wouldn't be out at sea. But I'll also say that when you're tracking wildlife out on the ocean, Cape cormorants are not always a very good indication of other feeding birds and other fish around. So often you'll see Cape cormorants out flocking, but you won't see other birds feeding with them. So if I'm looking for, let's say, whales or dolphins, I'm never looking for Cape cormorants. I'd rather look for swift terns or gannets. That would be a much better indication. So we're looking at one of our cormorant rocks there, and I can see a couple of Cape cormorants sitting there. I can also see some crowned cormorants on that rock. I think we might even have 3 different species of cormorant living there, or sitting there at the moment. And then I'm actually going to make Jason go to sea. He's just going to go to the left of that rock. So there are definitely crowned and Cape cormorants, but at sea we've got some flippers out of the water. And you can see there's just these things standing out. So once these people have walked past, we've actually got quite a few people walking past. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a rain check on that. I think those flippers are going to stay out the water for quite some time. So we'll wait until the majority of the people have passed, and then we'll see if we can get a closer look. But of Cape Fur seals, and those Cape Fur seals are having a nice nap out at sea. So often they'll catch some fish, and then they'll all just hang out in a little group.
In that tree are 2 carcasses. There's a duiker carcass and a waterbuck. Well, it's not as graceful as he's a bit hesitant because, well, climbing a tree is not the easiest, but he will get up there eventually. So let's see, there he goes. And look at the power in that. That is a massive 500-pound cat that has just climbed the marula tree and is up in there. How cool is this?
I don't know how he's going to do it, but let's see.
You can see the hyenas are far more tolerant of vultures than a lion or leopard would be. Occasionally a hyena will bite sort of a couple of tail feathers out of the back of a vulture, but I've never actually seen them, even once they've caught one, actually kill it. Oh, there we go, nearly got him.
Jason is just having a look at the intertidal zone to see what is happening and what we have. So you can see we've got these bouldered rocks. And you'll find there's often far less penguins on these bouldered rocks than there are on the rocks that are a little bit flatter. We've got 2 who are having a bit of a rest. They're on their bellies. We've got 1 penguin who is cleaning itself. And this penguin is now going to navigate the boulders, likely making its way back to the nesting area. Justice, you have a very strong name. I really like that. So the seals, that's very hard to quantify because what often happens is that you get a particular naughty seal or 2 particular naughty seals, and then they hang around. So sometimes you can go ages without seals hanging around the colony, and then other times you'll have naughty seals who decide that they are penguin hunters, and then you could have them here for days or weeks at a time. Then they can also disappear. So we're going to go have a look at those seals. Those seals that we're seeing there, I don't think are penguin eating seals. The reason for that is that seals are generalists. Seals eat pretty much anything. But what I have noticed is that seals do specialize. So they're opportunistic in the sense that they'll catch anything they can find. But certain seals really specialize in hunting silver scooting fish. I've met seals that specialize in hunting sharks. I've met seals that would specialize in penguins. those seals over there in a nice big group like that, I find the big groups are often going after the silver schooling fish, and they actually hunt in association with the sardine trawling. Have done, they've learned how to use the boats to their advantage. So what they do is the guys go out and they put their nets down, the seals get into the nets, they catch the fish inside the nets, and then as the guys start to pull the nets up, the seals start jumping out the nets. So seals have perfected the art of working smart and not hard. Those seals are just relaxing. They're not having a deep sleep there. But if they put their flippers up in the air, they are in a resting state. And they can also use their flippers to help control their body temperature. So they have a counter current system in the flipper where the blood runs. And so if they want to warm up, they can point their flipper to the sun and that can help to warm them up. But they can also use that to cool them down because these are Cape fur seals. They've got a double layer of fur. They've got a super thick layer of fat and blubber. And so sometimes they get a bit hot and they'll hop into the water. They'll put their flipper up. The wind blows over the flipper and it'll cool the entire body of the seal. Whales and dolphins can also do that. So flippers and tails tend to have a lot less fat, a lot less blubber than the rest of the body. And so if they want to cool down, they'll send their... Oh, we're having a look, but I just want to go have a look at Flippy and Frodo quickly because one of them is lying on top of its parent and it's too cute. So we're just going to take a break from that. But by sending blood to the flippers and tails, they can cool down their entire body. But just look at the baby penguin. I think it had its head on top of its parent, and the moment we went to go have a look, it decided otherwise, but the little head is tucked into the side of the parent. And they're just having a nice little snuggle together, which is really cute.
Hyena and Hippo walking side by side, terror etched on the expression of little Hippo. Look at this! Last mad dash! Hyena running along beside it. Baby Hippo, jaws gaping. It's gonna make it. It's gonna make it. It did it. The baby Hippo against all odds.
The Safari Guide of the Year 2022 is approaching us rapidly. This year, we'll be heading to Bushwise Field Guides at the Southern African Wildlife College from the 27th June till the 2nd of July. We will soon meet all our contestants who are vying for the prize of being the very best of the best, and the judges who will put them through their paces. Join me, Steve Falconbridge, as we dream it, guide it, win it.
So you can just see the little beak of one of the chicks resting on the parent's back. And I think that's such a tender thing to see. The weather is warm today, so there's no reason to need to be close. That's just a baby penguin wanting some love from its mommy or daddy. And Kimberly's got a question for us. Kimberly, so Flippy and Frodo are likely to come back. They could move if they wanted to. They don't have to come back. So if they get to about 2 or 3 years old and they start hanging out, let's say on Dia Island or Jehoop or somewhere else, then they could be deflectors. But most penguins would come back to their natal colony. I worked with a lady who was a veterinary nurse, and she spent a lot of time with the penguins, and she always said to me that penguins reminded her a lot of cats. and she always found penguins to be very sentient. And sentient is something that we definitely associate with things like your elephants and your whales and your dolphins. The more time that you spend with any species, I think the more you see the sentience, the more you see behaviors that can't just be explained by needing to rest or eat or continue the species and continue the bloodline. And touch for so many animals. Mammals need touch, mammals love touch, and touch really helps to calm us down. It helps us to co-regulate, because we are mammals, we are social species, we actually need to touch each other, it's very good for us. And I do wonder with penguins if these little chicks maybe get a fright or they're a bit nervous, if just snuggling up with one of the parents makes them feel safe, and actually also helps to calm their nervous system down. I'm pretty sure it might. And that other baby, you just see fluff. That baby is dead to the world and just having such a nice nap. I've been thinking about this because I think I have mentioned it before on the show. We don't actually understand and have concept of whether animals recognize their young. I think they must later on in life. I don't know if there's very much parental investment. Like, I'm not sure that they would meet their chick's partner in 3 to 4 to 5 years time and think, oh, we're not a big fan of Jimmy, like he's not as big a penguin as what we had wished for her, or she could have gone for a more aggressive male partner. It's likely that they might interact, it's likely that they might see each other, they might go on hunts together for all that we know. But it wouldn't be like a human thing of come home and meet the parents. I think I can't think of a single other species that sort of looks for approval from the parents. There might be. I do think that might be quite human, where we sort of look for social approval in terms of who we allow in our lives. But maybe it's not so human. I need to actually have a think about that and go have a read. And it is amazing what you think about after a show, because I go and watch the shows and I think about some of the things that I've said. One of the things that I said last week that I still haven't corrected is when Igor and I were eating June spinach, we were not grazing, we were browsing. That was incorrect. We were browsers that day, because grazing is grass and browsing is like trees and bushes. But the other thing was, yesterday I was doing the scuba signals, and as I was driving, I was thinking of what else I knew, and on the show I forgot to do out of air, which is a very important signal, and I also didn't do checking your air, which is also, it's two of the most important concepts in scuba, which I probably should have remembered at the time. So we're just taking a wide view of the jacuzzi. That's got lots of water pushing into it, so it's not a great place to go have a little swim at the moment. Many of the penguins are sitting up now. They all seem to be preening.
If you would like to be a part of the team that shares the wildebeest migration in Kenya live on WildEarth, then we have some great news for you. There are a few places left to join our expeditions in August and September this year. You'll be staying in an exclusive tented camp with ensuite bedrooms nestled in the riverine woodlands of the Talek River. Head over to our website to book your bucket list experience today. WildEarth Expeditions. Travel with purpose.
This is amazing, and now she's headed towards the elephants. Yeah. Here comes the male behind us. This is the male lion coming over here. The elephants are huddled up to protect the young ones in the middle, and he's going after that girl. And they are the buffalo going after the lion, and the lioness, they're still going after them. Look at that guy charging, hey!
So this is a very chaotic scene of penguins going up and down the penguin pathways here. So the one is showing off his preen gland really nicely, the other is waddling under the boardwalk. We've got these three just standing in the sun. That's a very interesting question, Pauline. So I don't think the chicks would likely take over the shelter because the parents are likely to continue breeding. Should the parents not be around anymore and they discover the hole and they think it's suitable, then that could happen. But I don't believe it's a generational thing where penguin chicks will take over from their parents, because once they are at breeding age, penguins can breed every single year and sometimes twice a year, and so their chicks kind of have to go and figure out their own spot. So they don't live in family groups per se. You do get some birds that live in family groups, but penguins tend to focus on the unit. Oh, there's a stretching flipper. Sorry, that was very cute. That little flipper is stretching, that baby's waking up. And under the flipper is so white, the contrast to that was gorgeous. Sorry, very distracted. Yeah, so penguins focus on their partnership, their monogamous partnership. And I don't think they find themselves too concerned with other... they concern themselves too much with sort of other socializing and other more complex social structures. That was definitely a bit of a peekaboo. It's always like, I love watching like dogs, even human children are quite cute when they just start waking up, when you just start to see the little stretching. But with most animals, it's so cute when you can just see the first little signs of life, like stirring again, and they just start to stretch a little bit. Jason wants to go film something else, so we'll see where Jason is going, what he's seen. Jason is past the jacuzzi, and 2 penguins in the water. 3. And there's that little channel that pulls the penguins in and out. It's like a slippery slide. So I think they're having a nice little bath on this hot... It's actually winter. It's a hot winter's day. We're almost at the solstice, actually. I think the 22nd is the winter solstice.
Hello everyone from sunny Namibia. My name is Cameron Pierce, and this year I'll be representing Ongava Game Reserve at the Safari Guide of the Year 2022 edition. You know, a lot of people have asked me what it would be like to win the competition, and it would obviously be an incredible privilege, but even just to be selected as one of the 5 finalists is an honor that I never expected, and special to be a part of it for this year.
My name's Liam Henderson. I'm a guide at the Homestead Lodge on Nambiti Private Game Reserve in KwaZulu-Natal. I think Safari Guide of the Year is a great competition to be a part of. I'm somewhat nervous for the tracking part of the competition, as being in KZN now, haven't been exposed to the low-felt animals and tracks and signs that are so apparent up there.
Jason's found several penguins who are in the kelp. We're going to see if they go out to sea or if they're just hanging out. You see they've got one juvenile with them who's hoping to join the hunt if they are heading out to sea. Doesn't look like it. It looks like they were just getting involved together and now they are heading back to the shoreline. There does seem to be a bit of fishing happening out in the deep. I don't think we're going to show it to you because it's very far away today and we didn't see any blows or anything, but there were some swift turns. So yesterday all the little white birds, in my excitement for the bigger animals, forgot to mention the little white birds were all our swift turns. So they're the ones that look like little stars in the sky. And there is actually a trawling boat. I was mentioning the trawling earlier, so there's a boat that is passing by on the horizon. So Deborah, that's a very interesting question. So you're asking about the seals and if their diet changes from the Western Cape to the Eastern Cape. The further east you go, the less seals you will have, because the seals also predominantly like sardine and anchovy, they like octopus, they like small sharks, and so on the east coast you would have far less Cape fur seals. I have a feeling they eat a lot of chokka up there, so I think they eat a lot more squid up east. But it's so, with seals it's so variable because they do tend to change their diet depending on what's around. What I'm going to do is, in my head I'm looking at a pie, I think it's a pie graph made by a research organization where they actually quantified what they found in the stomachs of seals. So I'm going to go and have a look tonight if I can find that pie graph. I know it's on their social media somewhere. And then I will actually come to you tomorrow and let you know, because they did quantify. I think they actually did one of the studies in PE, and then they did a study around here, and there was differences in what they found. So I think it's depending on what's found, and that can change with seals. It depends on their colony. So bay to bay, what food are they accessing? Seals can go out very far to feed. So, our seals can go out over the continental shelf about 300 kilometers. So they travel pretty far. But with their home colony, in some areas where there's a lot of mantis shrimp, they'd eat mantis shrimp. In other areas where they do have access to a lot of fish, they would eat your sardine and anchovy. Then you get your specialist feeders. But I'm going to go have a look for you. And Deborah, I will let you know in more detail tomorrow and see what I can find, because I think that was quantified by area, which was quite interesting. Oh, we've got 3 juveniles who are heading back in. Let's see what the adults do to these juvies. You'll never find, I've never seen a raft of just juvenile penguins out at sea. And instead of walking away from the adults, they've decided to go towards them.
Are you a fan of the Juma clan? If the answer to this is yes, then you are cordially invited to our Hyena Hullabaloo starting on the 13th of June. During this week, we want to take a trip down memory lane. Please send in your favorite Juma clan moments to hyeena@wildearth.tv by the 7th of June, and we will dig into our archives and try our hardest to play it out during this week of hyena celebrations. Long misunderstood as dim-witted, gluttonous scavengers, the hyena over the years has had a serious PR crisis on its paws. Here at WildEarth, our beloved Djuma clan has allowed us a chance to set the record straight.
We're sitting here with the Djuma clan.
So now it's time to honor this critical animal and join our hyena hullabaloo. Trishana Naidu, a self-confessed hyena lover, will be leading the celebrations, culminating in a chance to name Ribbon's new cubs.
We've had an interesting scene here. So there was one adult who just pecked at another adult that was trying to peck at a juvenile. And the one who's lying down was the one trying to protect the juvenile. So that's been interesting. This juvenile is not a very clever juvenile because he's sitting right in between the adults. And the one laying down has decided he doesn't want him there. There's space for them to maneuver. Doesn't seem to want to go anywhere but that rock. And what we are seeing in the colony is that all of our chicks are starting to lose their down. So we're seeing a lot more of the juvenile colors coming out, and the down comes up really easily. I was watching a juvenile in this wind the other day, and it just seems to sort of blow out almost. So very soon I think we might start to see these babies make their way to the shoreline. And Jason and I were looking earlier, and a lot of the parents are digging in their nests again. So I think all the chicks have gotten to a stage where they're much bigger. And so there's a lot of digging happening at the moment to adjust the nest to the size of the chicks. And we started off our show with one of our chicks digging, which was really cute to watch. That instinct has kicked in. That juvie is trying to settle on the rock, but he's very close to the other juvenile, and they also fight with each other. Jason's going to go have a closer look. It seems like there's a bit of tension on the shore again. So that one penguin has decided he's on his way. And here on Penguin Beach, we might just have a surprise for you all next week. So that's the only clue that I'm really going to give you. I think we might have some fun early on next week. I'm hoping that the rain is not going to deter us too much. I think we should go have a look at the sea.
My name is Nico Brits. I am originally from Cape Town. I worked in the Eastern Cape for about 9 years before I started working at Bushwise Field Guides in the Lowveld, close to Makalali Private Game Reserve. So I'm hoping that by doing this could inspire the younger or newer guides coming into the industry to do the same.
Hello everyone, my name is Ruan Grobler. I'm from Lion Sands Game Reserve, and being nominated for the Safari Guide of the Year came as somewhat of a surprise to me. I was very excited and quite nervous as well in the beginning to tackle this task. But it's quite a prestigious event, and it means that you are recognized. And I'm quite happy to be recognized. It means quite a lot to me.
And that cormorant sitting right at the top on the highest rock is a crowned cormorant. So I can just see the long tail and the bit of orange in the face, the red eye. The one that's just landed is a bank cormorant. You can see they're a little bit hot because their mouths are open. They're doing some gular fluttering, trying to cool themselves down. And cormorants have really established themselves well throughout the world. So you find them in a lot of your subantarctic islands, you'll find them in South America, New Zealand, you'll find them in Europe and in America. So there are around 40 different species of cormorant. And all of our cormorant species here seem to get along fairly well. So they don't mind all roosting in the same place and sharing that same space. They will steal from each other's nests. I have tried to get an update on the cormorant that Igor and I picked up the other day. We haven't heard anything yet. The cormorant is in the very capable hands of sandcob. And if they do damage their wings, they are able to sometimes help them, and the birds are able to fly again and be re-released. So here, I think that the animals need to be very wary, particularly the penguins need to be very wary if they're sitting on the rocks when the tide's coming in, because they can get smashed out. I think that in Cormorant Cove, where you have your little kitlets, plovers, and your dirkops and things like that, those nests are sometimes in danger of flooding if there's a storm and the water sort of fills into that sandy pan. With the bank cormorants, if the storms are bad enough, it can sometimes, but that's more storm than it is tide, I guess, wash the nests off the rocks. But in general, animals live with the tide, so they move with the tide. They're completely adapted to it. So the tide is not something that is very impactful for them. The animals that live in the intertidal zone are adapted specifically for wherever they live in the tidal zone. So tide is something, I guess it's almost like day and night to us. It's just something that is something we know to be part of life. I think tide combined with a bad storm is when things get a little bit tricky. And weather conditions are changing, and they tend to be they are getting more severe. So, you know, they tend to get a bit worse. And I think that's when you'll have areas getting water that wouldn't typically get water, and that might start to impact where the birds are nesting. Sometimes what does happen just before a storm is that the fish are closer to the shore, so that can actually be very beneficial. I know we were talking about the tides, but I do wonder with today, perhaps tomorrow morning being the calm before the storm, if we'll have fish pushing closer to shore, and if that will in turn make it a bit easier for penguins to get some food before 5 or so days of very, very stormy weather. We've gone back to our Cape fur seals, who still have their flippers up, so I thought that they'd stay there. Sometimes they can spend the day just hanging out with their flippers up, and if they see you, they might take a dive. And seals will often do that in a nice big group. They can do it alone. But if they If they're in a group, they feel a lot safer because if you're sitting at the surface alone, you are making yourself the perfect snack of the great white shark. So predators lurk below and prey sits above. Just had some people walk past, so we're just going to zoom out quickly. We might just be able to go back in there for you. So often when the seals are hanging out like that with their flippers up, they'll actually wrap themselves around a piece of kelp because the kelp helps to disguise their shape. The great whites will check out kelp at the surface as well, but you're far less conspicuous wrapped in kelp than you are just as a lone seal sitting at the surface like that. I've mentioned before, when seals are at sea, they don't sleep very deeply, so they'll just have these quick little naps. They'll rest half the brain and keep the other half of the brain awake. Seals are mammals like us, they have to breathe.
The Safari Guide of the Year 2022 is approaching us rapidly. This year, we'll be heading to bushwise field guides at the Southern African Wildlife College from the 27th June till the 2nd of July. We will soon meet all our contestants who are vying for the prize of being the very best of the best, and the judges who will put them through their paces. Join me, Steve Falconbridge, as we dream it, guide it, win it.
If you would like to be a part of the team that shares the wildebeest migration in Kenya live on WildEarth, then we have some great news for you. There are a few places left to join our expeditions in August and September this year. You'll be staying in an exclusive tented camp with ensuite bedrooms nestled in the riverine woodlands of the Talek River. Head over to our website to book your bucket list experience today. WildEarth Expeditions. Travel with purpose.
Okay, there's the whale again. There's the two humpback whales. So just below the boat to the right. We'll see, guys, we are so lucky. Keep it there. So Jason and I have just spotted some humpback whales. They haven't taken a deep dive yet. So where the birds were sitting, the whales are likely to come up. So it's two humpback whales. They're migrating to, oh, there we go, up again. Migrating towards Mozambique and Madagascar, and they are taking short dives, they're taking big breaths, in line with the Hermanus Mountain now, with the Horston Mountain. They'll be in line the next time they come up. So we only have 2 minutes left. We'd really love to see if we can get you a view of these humpbacks. So we'll have a look. There we go, up again. So they've changed direction, they're milling. So sorry, they've moved to the left again of the Horston Mountain. So I'd love to show you these whales. So I might not say goodbye with my face on the show. We just want to see if we can get you a view. There we go. Okay, the whales are milling, so they're just relaxing now. We'll see. There we go. You can see the whale footprint in frame. So I'm really hoping we get you a couple of views. But on behalf of Jason and I, thank you so much for joining us out here today. I'm going to try really hard to see if maybe the whale might show up for you. And we, as we do every day, are going to send you over to our team in Djuma to see what they're getting up to. Looks like these whales have taken a bit of a deeper dive. Oh, there we go, there's a flipper! Yay! Oh, this is so... That's the whale's tail. I'm so happy. I hope you're all so happy, guys. Thank you so much for watching.
This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.